So we start again, and it will be probably just 4 or 5 sessions because November the compulsory practice will start. So there were a number of suggestions as to what to do during these 4 or 5 sessions. So one of them that came to me was that maybe we could do something on the Vedas. But obviously 4 or 5 sessions on the Vedas will be doing a gross injustice, and maybe some other time we can take it up. But equally, there is a Veda which we have it written and documented, but there is a Veda which is constantly unfolding in life. So anything we take up can be a Veda or seen in the Vedic light. As Aurobindo says that the unfolding, blossoming of a flower, the slight casual passing breeze, the rain, the sunshine, these are all divine moments. And earth itself is one of the greatest divine documents. And each event and circumstance of life is nothing else but the divine unfolding himself in so many beautiful ways, marvelous ways. So maybe we could take the Vedas at this point from that angle, but focusing on health, because 4 or 5 sessions, the only thing that I could think of was that maybe we could take up health in the light of Mother and Aurobindo from a deeper angle. Some people had asked me about what was my experience like during the last 4 weeks. I was out to New York and London, and I feel very hesitant to talk about these things. It's always the same experience. But the first thought that came to me was how beautifully the work of Mother and Aurobindo is going on everywhere. And we can see it, it's not confined to centers or people, it's like everywhere there is a wind of change. And one can see humanity gradually getting stratified in several layers. One, of course, is what we commonly experience. And that kind of humanity is everywhere, and all of us have something of that within us. And it's beautifully described in Savitri, when Aurobindo contrasts the being of Savitri with our own way of life, affranchised from the respite of fatigue. Once more the humor and the round of life pursued the cycles of her blinded quest. The 1,000 peoples of the soil and tree sprang up to their unvarying daily acts, and, lured by the beauty of the apparent ways, hastened to take their portion of ephemeral joy. So this is one part of life. And perhaps seeing this part, people take to Mayavad and they say, nothing can happen, nothing can change. We go through the streets and we see the same rumor of the speed of life pursuing its blinded quest, cycles and cycles. And sometimes one wonders, when would we wake up to this fact that this is not enough, this cannot fulfill the Spirit's sacred thirst. But this is not the interesting part. The second part is the more interesting part, that there is a growing something which can again be best described in the being of Savitri, which is we see is happening everywhere. In her there was the anguish of the gods, imprisoned in a transient human mold. So this is what one finds everywhere, the anguish of the gods. There is a haste, there is a rush, not simply in the cycle of life, but to change things. And while I was in New York, there was a whole drama going on ground zero, because there was a mosque which was to be built nearby, and Obama had given sanction, and people were protesting against it, that this is absolutely not right to do that, it will hurt the sentiments, and this whole drama was going on. It was interesting to see that. In London, the visit coincided with the arrival of Pope, and again there was a lot of, as if people were absolutely, there was a need for change, a cry for change. This is what one observed everywhere. And of course, back home, the Commonwealth Games changing into Commonwealth shame. This was so evident. And while one was trying to make a sense, of course, this is very clear. It's not that this is something unforeseen. Mother and Aurobindo have spoken about it, but one can see it more and more happening. This anguish, this urge to change things. And as I took up this book, which I thought that we could take as a base book, and most of the readings I'll take it from here, it's an excellent compilation, Integral Healing. This is by our ashram, and it's a very beautiful compilation on health and healing. But health and healing as seen from the deeper point of view, it's not like we catch up one phenomena of illness, we discard it and catch up another. And looking at it and looking at the changes, if somebody was to ask what was the experience, I would say there is a good news and a bad news. The bad news is that everywhere all the age-old values, traditions, institutions are breaking down. The good news is the same, that everywhere the age-old valued, hallowed traditions and institutions are breaking down. The same thing which is a bad news is also a good news, because this is where the seeds of a new creation are germinating. And that was very, very evident, that through all this cry, there is a catalyst action, this fermentation, as the mother has put it at several places. There is a very solid movement towards a beautiful change. And for a change, this time I observed it very materially. Long back, Mother has said that the very material atmosphere of the earth has changed. Personally, I could sense it only in Pondicherry. I couldn't sense it anywhere else. But this time I felt that all over the earth there is a sense of that changed atmosphere. What it means, that new substance, that new consciousness is seeping in the very air that you breathe. Of course, this is a very personal, subjective experience, and I can't say this is something universally felt. But then when we turn to Mother and Aurobindo's writings, and I have two books which just came to my hand, one just before I left and the other one just today. And it's very interesting that 50 years down the line, humanity has begun to echo exactly what Mother and Aurobindo have been saying since almost a century, if one may say so. So I'll read something from the Mother, and then from these books, just to see how exactly this change is taking place and how we can be catalyst of the change. In fact, what is interesting is that the very forces that are working to destabilize the world are also the very forces, if we harness them, they can build a beautiful change. This is the whole theme of this book which I am reading right now. So, the Mother says, we are at a moment of transition in the history of the earth. It is merely a moment in eternal time. This, of course, is the infinity of our consciousness. But this moment is long compared to human life. Matter is changing in order to prepare itself for the new manifestation. As early as 1912, the Mother has spoken about it when she gives a talk to the women of Japan. And she says that once again we see nature has entered into a new mode. She is trying to draw new forces to create a new being. So this is of course much later, and she is saying matter is changing in order to prepare itself for the new manifestation. But the human body is not plastic enough and offers resistance. This is why the number of diseases and even incomprehensible diseases is increasing and becoming a problem for medical science. So these problems are very interestingly doorways. If we get it right, we see the solution right there. And if we don't get it right, we keep changing one remedy for another. So what is the remedy? Of course, she has given a very beautiful remedy, to which we'll maybe over the next few weeks. The remedy lies in union with the divine forces that are at work, and receptivity full of trust and peace, which make the task easier. The more we are at peace, the more we are full of faith, the more these forces can work, the divine forces can work with a greater and greater power. One thing seems obvious, that humanity has reached a certain state of general tension. Tension in effort, tension in action, tension even in daily life for no reason at all. One gets up in the morning and one is tense. There is no particular reason. Everything is okay, everything is fine. Psychiatrists are becoming very rich outside. With such an excessive hyperactivity, such a widespread agitation, that the human race as a whole seems to have come to a point where it must either break through the resistance and emerge into a new consciousness, or else fall back into an abyss of darkness and inertia. It's just like an egg. In the initial phases, everything is quiet inside. Or like a baby in the womb. This is one of the most perfect examples of the change. That in the initial phases, nothing is known. Even the mother doesn't know that there is a baby inside the womb. But then she comes to know, she feels some stir. Initially, that stir is very pleasant. Mothers often note, oh, the baby is kicking, first time it has kicked. So it's a great event. In one of my talks on parenting, one of the mother remarked, the prospective mothers, I don't know whether she heard anything about the talk or not, but she was very happy that for the first time the baby kicked. So this was one of the things which she noted. It's something very beautiful. But as the months pass, there is something else which begins to take place. And then there is the pain and the anguish. So humanity is reaching a point where it must either break through and find a new solution to the problems of life, or else it collapses back. This tension is so complete and so widespread that something obviously has to break. It cannot go on in this way. Because long back she has said, my child, the hour of the ego is gone. So how does the ego break? It refuses to break. So there is an inner pressure for it to break. And when it breaks, out of that mold of caterpillar inside the cocoon, a beautiful butterfly emerges. We may take it as a sure sign of the infusion into matter of a new principle of force, consciousness, power, which by its very pressure is producing this acute state. It was very interesting that if we go through the therapies that are coming up these days, on one side we read so much about, like 2 days back there was this heart day, and there's so much fear which has been spread, do this prevention, that prevention. On the other side, all over the world, some very simple remedies are coming which one cannot believe that this is really, is it really possible? Can things be really cured? I myself carried some 5 leaves therapy for asthma all the way to New York, which is, supposed to be the most happening place for a child who was suffering from intractable asthma for a long time. I was myself not sure whether this is going to work. But I said, it's better not to put suspicion in the head. So with full trust I went and gave it. And I said, every morning you take it on empty stomach. It's yet to follow up. This is just 1 month back. But such things are emerging all over the world, that there are some very simple ways to come out of very serious problems. As the mother says that many things which people call as serious are actually not so serious from the inner point of view. And there are things which people just think is trivial, are extremely serious from the inner point of view. And she's talking of illnesses. Outwardly, we should expect the old methods used by nature when she wants to bring about an upheaval. But there is a new characteristic, which is, of course, is only visible in an elite. But even this elite is fairly widespread. It is not localized at one point, at one place in the world. We find traces of it in all countries, all over the world. The will to find a new, higher, progressive solution. An effort to rise towards a vaster, more comprehensive perfection. So, on one side, there is a breakdown of all old methods. It doesn't work. Whether it be in the bringing up of a child, all the parents have the old method, the way we were brought up. It doesn't work out. You tell a child, no, you must behave like this. The child turns back and says, you better behave yourself. You are telling us, so it doesn't work. The the educational models of the past don't work. Classrooms are becoming increasingly redundant. This is actually, one can see it happening, and it's amazing how it is happening outside in the world. Actually, classrooms are becoming redundant. The transfer of information is so rapid that somebody has calculated it's hundreds of million times more than what was just about 100 years back. How was information transferred 100 years back? By horses carrying a letter from one point to another. So when people traveled from India outside, they were given a proper sacrament and a ritual because they didn't know whether they'll come back or not. And when they came back, there was again a ceremony as if they are being newborn. Now all that has changed. Such a rapid transfer of information. Now this is what the mother has said nearly 50 years back. Now look at these two things where we find this, one of the latest books. And the name of the book is The Age of the Unthinkable. It is written by an American. Why the New World Disorder Constantly Surprises Us and What to Do About It. So the name of the book is The Age of the Unthinkable. And the author writes, we are now at the start of what may become the most dramatic change in the international order. In several countries, the biggest shift, this change is irresistible. It is infectious. One almost feels that the person is inspired and has come to Pondicherry and read all about Mother and Aurobindo. But when we look at the biodata, there is nothing of that sort. This change is irresistible. It is infectious. It will spread to every corner of our lives, to our businesses, our bank accounts, our hopes, and our health. This man is basing all his theories on hard data which he has collected right in the last 20-30 years. It is a change. Now what is the direction of the change? We just read that Mother is telling us that this change has two parts. One is the breakdown of many things which are old. They have to break, the molds have to break and something new has to emerge. And the second is the emergence of new things, shift of our ways of thinking. So he is saying it is a change that will render institutions that look unshakable, weak and unstable. It will elevate movements that look weak into positions of great power. As much as we might wish it, our world is not becoming more stable or easier to comprehend. We are entering, in short, a revolutionary age. And we are doing so with ideas, leaders, and institutions that are better suited for a world now several centuries behind us. All the things that we have today in life, the systems, the mechanisms, the processes, the methods, are all centuries old. And they are going to suddenly break. But it is also creating new fortunes, new power, fresh hope, and a new global order. So this is an American writing there, almost as if verbatim echoing what Mother has already implanted in the heart of humanity, as I look at it, decades back. And this is another book which I just got today, and I was just glancing through it. This written by a British lady who writes that we are now all living through the last days. This is written in the backdrop of 2012 because this was one of the subjects of my talk. 2012, a lot of people believe that it's going to be the doomsday. So scientists have predicted asteroids will hit Earth, and physicists at NASA have found that the Earth is going to reach the zero magnetic field in 2012. After which the magnetic field will suddenly change and the direction of spin will change, leading to cataclysmic changes in the environment, climate, everything. They've also spoken of solar flares suddenly around 2012, which may finish off parts of Earth. This is, of course, the difficult part of it. And we know the Mayan and the Egyptian calendars, particularly the Mayan calendar, stops at 2012. They had made 13 cycles, each cycle covering about 5,125 years. And they have made cycles right up to 2012. And 20th December 2012, that is 2012, the calendar stops. So there is, as if everywhere, this fear, apprehension of a doomsday. But very few know that this end is not the end of civilization, it is the end of the old consciousness, of the old way of being, and the emergence of the new. The beautiful part is, all over the world, there are people who are beginning to understand that there is a new emergence and they are beginning to participate in the change. So, the bad news is also the good news. What we are now all living through the last days. This is not a bad news. This does not mean that the end of the world is coming through terrorism, a holocaust, or severe earth changes, as many prophets of doom and gloom would have us believe. Rather, we are witnessing the beginning of a glorious new age of light. Again, when I went through the biodata, this person has not read anywhere Mother and Aurobindo. Of cooperative sharing of planet Earth's resources, of peace, joy and love. The new age will occur both for our planet and for all of her inhabitants who consciously choose to participate. Now is the time for an end to the dramas of false action, the exerting of crushing power over others, and the constant self-seeking of inflated egos. The mother said long back that the hour of ego has gone. You must tell your ego, your time has gone. She tells the remedy. She says, tell not to cling, do not cling. If you cling to anything, any mold, because it's going to change with such a rapidity that in front of our eyes we will see landscape changing at dizzying speed. It's like when we move at bullock cart, we don't see the change because it's so slow. But imagine moving in a bullet train. The landscapes change so rapidly that before we recognize, things have changed around us. So this author is telling us there is no middle ground. We just read in the mother telling us that we have to make a conscious choice. We read the same thing here, that one makes a choice. We are reading again the same thing here, there is a choice. There is no middle ground. For either one chooses to commit totally to the light and its corresponding action, or one continues to cling to money, material comforts, false truths, and selfish abuse of earth's precious resources. A new light is emerging as never before seen on planet Earth. Be in joy, for the great awakening of humanity is now fully upon us. Astrologers call it the age of Aquarius, which is the age when the principle of harmony, equilibrium and balance will emerge, and we leave behind the Piscean age, which if we look at the zodiac sign, it's the last of the month. The Pisces is the last, the winter ends and the new age starts, the new year starts with this. So what we look at on the surface today as illness and the remedies, and not only illness which are physical but psychological, social, institutional, all these pathologies are nothing but this deeper play of forces, this Vedic conflict of which the Vedas speak of. The Vedas speak constantly of the conflict of light and darkness. And there are ages when one is on the ascendant and there are ages when there are others. We have these three forces of nature, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So there are times when Tamas is on the ascendant. So when Tamas is on the ascendant, everything is preparing to disintegrate. So whenever there is something static and happy in its self-complacent cocoon, one can almost say that suddenly it is going to break, because that is Tamas overpowering it. And the other is Rajas, an intense activity, an intense outpouring, new thoughts, new activities, new vision, new ways of looking at life, radical departures, sudden shift. And finally, the Sattva, or the harmony that must emerge. So this is the change we see taking place all over. On one side, the whole constructive and the destructive forces, as the mother has said, they are both racing together. And they are coming together, and both are ultimately fulfilling the same purpose. And yet, what we have to do is to align ourselves to the right forces and that is what is going to be the perfect and the most radical solution for illnesses. Otherwise, we just exchange illnesses or buy a little more lease of time. This buying a lease of time may be all right for an individual, but it's not all right for the human race. As Aurobindo puts very beautifully, that what we have exchanged our faith. The savage had faith in, he will have certain herbs and he will be cured. We have exchanged our faith in certain modern medicines. This is what we have exchanged. So he says, how is one faith better than the other? Neither of them are the true solution for the problems. And what we see today and label them as disease is actually an inner malaise which is resurfacing. So this is the line along which the mother reveals to us the truths, and most important that she tells us is that there is some time back, about maybe a century back, up to even 50 years back, whenever we thought of grace, we thought of something which is peaceful, something which protects, something which intervenes and makes life comfortable and easy. And she gives us a hint that was there, it is still an important part. But there is a new dimension or new aspect of grace which is going to come forward. And with that we can pause and continue next week. There was a time not so long ago when the spiritual aspiration of man was turned towards a silent, inactive peace, detached from all worldly things. A flight from life, precisely to avoid battle, to rise above the struggle, escape all effort. It was a spiritual peace in which, along with the cessation of all tension, struggle, effort, there ceased also suffering in all its forms. And this was considered to be the true and only expression of a spiritual and divine life. So some time back we escaped the problem and the solution. It's very interesting what mother is saying. We moved ourselves away from the zone of conflict. So that is one solution. But now the conflict is coming right up to our doors. And if we try to run away, it wakes us up as nightmares, because there is no way we can escape it, because there is another aspect of the divine action which is coming forward. It was considered to be the divine grace, the divine help, the divine intervention. So what was divine help? That all conflict ceases and everybody is peaceful because there is no conflict and no difficulty. And even now, in this age of anguish, tension, hypertension, this sovereign peace is the best received aid of all, the most welcome, the solace people ask and hope for. For many, it is still the true sign of a divine intervention of divine grace. So this is the basis, this is one side of divine grace, and it is very beautiful. But there is another side, the side which time to time we have been reading, and in one of his essays, Aurobindo says that when Krishna manifests, he does not manifest as peace. He manifests as dynamic change. It's very amazing. The mother is revealing to us there is another aspect of the divine grace. The aspect of progress which will be victorious over all obstacles. So one is to move out from the zone of conflict. The other is to find a new solution, a new harmony, a higher equilibrium with which we can solve the problems, the age-old problems that have vexed mankind. They are being brought to the surface, and that is the progress that we have to make. The aspect which will propel humanity to a new realization, which will open the doors of a new world and make it possible not only for a chosen few to benefit, but for their influence, their example, their power to bring to the rest of mankind new and better conditions. So what is happening? Two things. One is that earlier, to put it very practically, if one had a illness and one were to pray to the mother, "Mother, I don't want this illness," so illness vanishes. This is very beautiful. The second is that we work upon and the grace actually conquers the seed cause, the root cause, the real malady, not just the surface phenomena or symptoms, but the deeper issue that is involved in any pathology, whatever time it takes. But the beauty is, if it happens in one individual, that solution translates itself into the entire race. And here again we see the another aspect of the Vedic age, that each individual was regarded as a representative of a certain type in humanity. And if that difficulty could be conquered in one individual, it would have a ripple effect all over the world. The book that I was quoting, there is something very interesting that is written here, that a small crack on a part of the earth is leading to earthquakes elsewhere. That is the cascading effect today. Even a little hope, a little positive thought of one person is having a cascading effect. I am forgetting the exact incidence, but if I remember correctly, by and large the incidence is there, but exactly how it happened, the details notwithstanding. But how the mother asked somebody to continue in a particular place of work, and she said, just because of your positive thought, even though everything is going wrong, it is helping in the whole work. Now I remember the full incidence. The incidence is that there was a time when nobody would clean up the toilets and other things in the ashram. So, one wanted paid workers, because no sadhak is willing to take up the task of cleaning the toilets. So, the person who was in charge of the work, he tried, and whomever he would say, nobody would accept this work. They would want to be part of the ashram, but not this work. And finally, the person who was in charge of giving work, he told the mother, since nobody is willing to take this, I think I will take up this work and I'll do it myself. Now, within the next 1 month, suddenly 2-3 persons came, and on their own they said that, look, if there is a work like this, I would like to do it. I would like to clean up, the bathrooms and toilets in the ashram. So he went and asked mother, what is this play? When I was really desperately looking for somebody, I did not find the solution. But suddenly I find that within a month, we have these persons coming and on their own volunteering. So the mother said something very interesting. She said, there was a resistance in the hearts of everybody. But simply because you accepted to do it, you broke the resistance. After that, you didn't have to do anything. You broke the resistance inside, and suddenly the door opened. So this is how the doors are opening, that a resistance breaks somewhere inside one person. And because of that break of resistance, there is a cascading effect and there is a change. So she is telling us the aspect of grace which will propel humanity to a new realization, which will open the doors of a new world and make it possible not only for a chosen few to benefit by the divine realization, but for their influence, their example, their power to bring to the rest of mankind new and better conditions. So next time we have an illness, we can take it that it is a laboratory in which the divine is doing an experiment. And if it can succeed here, it will succeed elsewhere. So instead of feeling bad and saying that why is the divine testing me or punishing me, because none of this is true. It is just that certain of us have to be the catalyst of change. And I also remember another instance where someone had cancer, and the mother said the cancer cure has already been found in the subtle worlds. It has just to now materialize in the physical. So how beautiful life will become, and even Roga, not that one should ask for Roga, but Roga will become a yoga for a new life. So we will pause here and continue next week.